Sit back and relax as I explain ARC's breeding and mutation process for you. Check out the description if you need any timestamps so you can navigate this easily. This guide is designed with everyone in mind, and I will cover the limitations imposed on official servers for you. Step 1. Acquire baby makers. Head out into the wild, young survivor. You're going to want to tame as many male and female creatures of your target species as you have the patience for. Try to keep them as close to max level as you can to increase the chances of having high base stats for your breeders. Unofficial, the maximum level is 150, so I typically only tame creatures that are level 130 and above to use as breeders. Official players are going to want to use this time to also tame level 5 or 10 versions of all the creatures as well. The maximum level of your tames on Official is only 450, so you're going to need these lower level dinos to breed and lower stats on things like oxygen and food to give the health and melee stats room to grow. If you add any experience levels to these creatures, then those stats are not going to be factored in the breeding process. The only stats that get passed down are your post-tame stats and mutations. Gather up all the creatures you just tamed and write down the highest stats for each of them. I like to change their names to reflect which stats they have the best of to make the process easier. If any of the creatures you have tamed don't have any stats worth using, then you can dispose of them however you see fit. Official players should take this time to check the stats of all your low-level tames that you acquired and name them according to which stats that they have the lowest of. The raptors that you see here are only being bred for melee and health, so this is all I'll need. Step 2. Consolidate the stats. Now it's time to start breeding. The objective here is to breed all of them together until you have all of the best stats in a male and female pair. This can take some time, so be prepared for it. There's a 55% chance that the highest stat gets passed on to the babies. They're not the best odds, but they're certainly in your favor. You might actually wind up breeding two creatures together several times before you can get the correct stats. If you get any mutations in this stage, be sure to remove that creature from the mix. You do not want mutations yet because you need clean breeders to start. If you're on Official, it's this stage where you're going to want to mix in your low-level tames that have as few levels as possible in things like oxygen and food. Remember, there's a 55% chance that the higher stat gets passed on, so when breeding these low-level guys, you're only going to be dealing with a 45% chance that you're going to get the lowest stat. This guy was created by breeding all the low-level tames I found. He's only level 3 and has 2 levels in health and 0 in everything else. My low-level raptor was a male, and my melee and health raptors were female. The objective here is to breed them together until I get a breeding pair of babies with a high melee and health stats and 0 points in everything else. This is how min-maxing works. Now I have the best potential for a raptor breeding line. If your private server doesn't have a level 450 cap like Official, then you can go ham and just keep all the highest stats. There's a cap of 255 points for individual stats that we'll cover later during the mutation stage. Once you have all the stats that you want in a male and a female, it's time to name them accordingly and get yourself a large group of females to work with. You only need one male. Now, if you're on Official servers, I kind of want to explain min-maxing a bit more. There's a reason that you want to do this. On Official servers, the max level of your tames is 450 and a stat cap of 255 for each individual stat. Any points that you have in stats that you won't use are wasted. You want to keep those useless stats as low as possible to make room for your other stats that matter. The stats that matter are going to be different for each breeding line. If you're breeding Rexes for boss fights, then health and melee are the only things that matter. If you're breeding an Argentavis, then maybe weight matters more to you than melee. Step 3. Mutations. You're going to want to have as many females as possible for this. There is no wrong answer for how many. The more you have, the higher chance you have of getting mutations. The most important thing for this step is the clean, unmutated females that you're using for this will never get swapped out. Leave them be, and never keep a female with mutations. You want your base breeding creatures to be 100% clean and free of those dirty mutations. Now, start breeding your base male and females together until you get a baby male with a mutation. If you get any females, get rid of them. You don't need them. It's easy to tell which ones have a mutation because they're going to be 2 levels higher than your male breeder. I say the male breeder because his levels will continuously increase as you swap them out with your mutated males. Check their stats to see which one mutated, and only keep the ones that have a mutation in the stat that you're breeding for. Everything else can be euthanized. A helpful strategy is to name all of your new mutated dinos according to what stat mutates. I always keep my previous generation breeders stored away in case I mess up down the line. Once your new mutated baby is an adult, you're going to remove the current male and replace him with your mutated male, and continue the process. For the next batch of babies, you're going to be looking for a male with 2 levels higher than this current breeder. You're going to continue this process over and over again until you get the stats that you're aiming for. Once you exceed 20 mutations on the patrilineal line, the chance of your mutations drop to 3.7%. Only the patrilineal line will exceed 20 levels because we're only using mutated males. This is why all your females are clean and free of mutations. You're going to continue to get mutations because the matrilineal side is clear, so don't sweat it. Mutations in ARC add 2 levels to the stat that it mutates. These stats are equal to the equivalent of tame levels, not experience levels. Here's where it gets really interesting. Step 4, the cherry on top. Here are some quick ARC facts. Each individual stat through breeding and mutations caps out at 255 points. The maximum levels that you can add to a creature through experience levels is 88. The levels gained through mutations and taming don't increase stats the same amount as experience levels. Wild levels are a set amount. Take the Rex for example. A Rex in the wild will have 220 health per level applied to the health stat. If you tame this Rex and level him up through gaining experience, then he's actually going to gain 5.4% of the base value the Rex tamed out with. So if your Rex has 10,000 health after being tamed or after mutating, then each experience level that you add to health is adding 540 instead of the base 220 that a wild Rex gets. Seem complicated? How about a visual? Let me demonstrate everything I'm talking about. Here on the right I have 2 raptors. One has 254 points in both health and melee, and the other has 255 points in both health and melee. These raptors have experience points to level up the maximum of 88 levels. But as you can see, the one with 255 points in health and melee is unable to level up. The option is completely grayed out. Now if we look at the raptor with 254 points in both health and melee, those buttons are no longer grayed out. We can essentially level this raptor up past the 255 point cap in individual stats, but if you're unofficial, then you're capped at a maximum total level of 450. Now here's the best part. The raptor on the left has mutations and wild levels that equal a maximum level of 450. This is the highest you can go unofficial. There's 254 points in health and 195 points in melee. That equals 1,272% damage. The raptor on the right's difference is only 107 points in melee. This frees up 88 experience levels that we can add to match the max level of 450. Both of these raptors are now level 450, but one has 88 domestic levels added, which gave it a grand total of 1,911% damage. This is a pretty massive difference, so make sure you plan ahead on how many points you're going to need in your dino's stats before you get too far with mutations. All of this might seem daunting, but once you get rolling, you should have little issues breeding up some amazing dinos on your server. Step 5, the recap. Tame a lot of your target creature. Keep them near max level if possible. Breed all of these creatures together to consolidate your best stats. You want a matching male and female pair to start your breeding. Breed a single base male and as many base females that you can get in order to speed up the mutation process. Once you get your first mutated baby, you'll swap out the original base male with your new mutated baby once it's all grown up. Domestic levels are not the same as wild or mutated levels. 255 is your individual stat cap, 88 is the maximum amount of experience levels you can apply, and 450 is the maximum tame level unofficial. Thank you for stopping by the channel, and I hope this guide has served you well. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.